Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special guest. This is Parker. He owns this 1988 Mustang Coupe behind me, and it's a very, very special car. So let's get into it. Parker, tell me a little bit about this car.
Thanks for having me, Matthew. Honestly, it's been a great time here at Tech Motion, getting him to tune my car. This particular car is actually a 5.0 5-speed car, LX notch. It is no AC, power, manual mirrors, rare car, factory stereo delete car as well. I've had this car for about 10 years, and I've been just working on it and picking it up over 10 years.
So I've done a little bit of research on this car. Some of the audience may have heard about stripper coupes. There are lots of non-AC cars in Canada, and it's tempting to refer to every non-AC car as a stripper car. But this car, after I've done a little bit of research and looked the car over, I think is actually a very, very special car. It is a factory non-AC, crank window, manual lock, manual mirror, non-tilt steering, radio delete, no options car. Now, it's not a 41X trim code. However, it is truly a no option car. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the history that I know of these cars. There was a guy in Winnipeg. His name was Ed. He was with Motion Performance. Maybe some of you Manitoba guys can help me out in the comments what his last name was. But he was credited with being one of the first guys to figure out how to order these cars as no option cars. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are a couple of advantages to no option cars. They're lighter, they're faster, and they cost less money. So that's why they started doing it. He worked with some dealership in Winnipeg to get one for himself, and then the dealership apparently discovered, well, they could put a bunch of cheap 5-liter Mustangs on the lot, so they started bringing them in. And there was an article quite a few years ago that I saw. I'm sure it was in Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards, might have been Super Ford, might have been 5.0. It's long since gone, can't find it, but it was about this, the history of these stripper cars, these Canadian stripper cars, and there was a picture in that magazine of a lineup of these stripped coupes at a Winnipeg dealership. Now, this particular car has a DSO B4, which is Ford of Canada Midwestern division. That's almost certainly Winnipeg. So I think it's entirely possible that this car is one of those cars. It's one of those Winnipeg history Canadian stripper cars. A very unique car. Let's have a little bit of a look inside. So there's a couple of things that are very interesting on these stripper cars. You got this delete panel here. There's no power windows or locks. The manual mirrors, or I think these would have probably been called dual remote.
Yes.
Now, if this car was going to be faked, these mirrors are extremely hard to come up with. So that's a very hard detail to come up with. And then we move down here, and you got these aftermarket chromy crank window handles, which are clearly not stock. So people are going to say, oh, this car's a putback. But who would put this stuff on and go to the trouble of putting this stuff on to try and make it look like a stripper? Tell me about these door handles. What happened there? Or sorry, the crank window handles.
The crank windows, they were just basically falling apart, just the outer skin, the outer plastic they had on there.
Right.
You know how it goes. You get shopping online and, oh, there's a set of crank windows. Maybe I'll try them out. So that's why I got those.
Built with parts from Rock Auto, right?
Yeah, I think it was Rock Auto, yeah.
Okay, so the other thing you said was this car was a radio delete car. But, I mean, I can't confirm that because now there is a nice aftermarket head unit in there and so on. But when you got it, it did not have the antenna delete panel, right?
That's right. It had an antenna in it, but it was lopped off like a side cutter. Like someone was just using it to block it, or just to kind of cover the hole.
And did it look like a radio had ever been put in the car?
There was never a radio in this car.
So tell me a little bit about the cues on the car that told you there would never been a radio in it.
Well, when I first started, I was like, you know, like I'd like to have a nice stereo, but it definitely wasn't a priority. More other things on the car were definitely more priority. I like to hear the car run, so technically that was more of a priority than a stereo. But once I got into this project for the stereo, I realized that it's never had any speed nuts in the doors. It's never had any speed nuts in the trunk area where your speakers mount. So I got looking, and the factory grommets that are in the doors have never been removed or tampered with. So that was a good indication that there's never been a wire in this door. So it's never had a speaker. When I did get everything apart, it had no speed nuts, no scratch marks from a speed nut in the doors. Same things go for the tweeters in the front. So that's when I first started realizing, hey, what's going on? This car might be pretty special here with the actual stereo plug just dusted over, like dirty.
Right.
Without a plate. There was no plate there, but it was just like open with this dirty connector. I was like, that must be the stereo connector that was supplied with it.
I'm going to draw your attention to the AC slug here. Even if you thought this was a car that had AC deleted, because it is modified, this is a completely unused AC slug.
Money.
Now, something I noticed on this car is there's no tilt steering, right? So almost all of these like 88 Mustangs with a 5-liter had tilt steering. This car did not have tilt steering when you got it, and as far as you know, this is the factory arrangement.
This is the,
right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's another, I think, cue that tells you that this car was really a stripped car. Tell me about these seats. These seats, this car originally did not have the sport seats. It had the base LX seats,
A base
right?
LX.
And these are the original seats, but you have had them reupholstered in black.
Correct.
Because the car has the much desirable porno red interior from,
Yes.
from the factory,
Yes,
right?
the entire interior was pretty much straight red.
Since this video was filmed, a Marty report has been produced for the car, and it has raised some questions. Notably, this car has a DSO of B4, which is Canada Midwest, and Winnipeg dealers fall into that DSO. However, Kevin Marty lists the selling dealer as Macklin Ford, which is a B6 or Canada West dealership in Calgary. I'm not sure how to account for this inconsistency, though I suppose it's possible that there was a dealer transfer involved. The other inconsistency is that while the option list is generally consistent with a full no-option car, the Marty report says that it had an AM/FM cassette stereo installed. That doesn't line up with the owner's observations about the untouched grommets in the doors or the lack of witness marks from any speakers ever having been installed, so it's hard to know what to think about the original stereo status. Regardless of whether this car was ordered from Winnipeg or from Calgary, and whether it really had a stereo delete from the factory or not, it is, for all intents and purposes, a no-option coupe, and is a unique part of Mustang history. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell so that you won't miss out on future videos.